Good morning to everybody. Good morning to the track 5 session, part 2, strategy and business creation. We already yesterday in part 1 addressed some strategy aspects and also business aspects, but mainly focused on that what is of major interest for industry and also for research organizations. Here today, we talk about strategy in a different sense. We talk about, of course, strategies in terms of policy strategies. And so the ideal case, of course, would be that industry strategies and policy strategies go hand in hand. We have 4 speakers here who represent the public side in a certain sense, if we may call the 3-partite ECSEL also a public thing. It's of course a program open for the public, and we have one industry representative. So the focus is on the funding landscape, on the funding of ECS and smart systems in particular at the various administrative levels. So the session is chaired by myself and by Herve Ribot, and we have changed roles. So I will be the session chair today, and he's the co-chair. So maybe you say just again some words about your person before we start.
Okay, good. Yeah, good morning, everybody. So like yesterday, I'm still Micro Nano Electronic Director at Minalogic Innovation Cluster, and Minalogic is located in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes in France. So this is Grenoble, but also Lyon and Saint-Étienne area. And I just wanted to remind you that during the talks, you can ask your questions on the fly using the chat box that is available on Teams. So do not hesitate to do that, and I will help Wolfgang gather these questions so that we can respond to your question at the end of each talk, I guess. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm Wolfgang Gessner, Director of EPoSS, who is one of the co-organizing organizations of the Smart Systems Integration Conference. We start with a presentation, an introductory presentation from the industry side, and this presentation is given by Kai Bierzynski from Infineon, and he is addressing the issue from a point of view which for some of you might be unusual, but I think it's of particular importance for the future of smart systems. And his presentation is entitled HI trends and their impact on smart systems in the next decade. And it, of course, could be also some something of orientation for what for priority setting in the landscape of funding for smart systems in the coming years. So Kai Bierzynski is from Infineon. He is a computer scientist, graduate at the Technical University of Dresden. And in his career, he was also involved in projects about sensor fusion, meta learning, resource efficient artificial intelligence. And yeah, I pass the floor to Kai to give his introduction to the topic.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Then also welcome from my side to the presentation of the EPoSS white paper about Edge AI. And let's start with the good news. this white paper we, as a EPoSS Edge AI expert group, worked upon in the last 7 to 8 months is now finished. You can access through this link you can see here on this slide. And also, we are still open for feedback. So when you have any kind of feedback, you can provide it to us until the 17th of May. And then we will try to integrate it in the paper to make it then the absolute final version. With this out of the way, let's go into the paper and the content of the paper. But for that, let's first set the context. I think most of you already heard the term cloud. Cloud is these days a very important part of every smart system out there. However, cloud has its own problems like privacy and latency. And because of that, around between 2013 and 2015, there came up the trend of moving some part of the computation towards the network edge. And this is especially important for Europe, because when we look at it, the cloud market is dominated by American and Chinese companies, as you can see with the statistic here on the side. But the edge computing market and the market for the layer between the network edge and the cloud, which is so-called fog computing, is still open, and Europe can establish itself here. And in this context, a very important subtopic is the topic of edge AI, since it's a very important basis for many important and interesting applications. In the paper, we looked at some of these applications. I will only talk about 4 of them. One is automated inner chips, which are explored in the funding project ASFORM. This is about the idea to move the transportation of goods in big cities from the streets onto water channels. And Edge AI is here very important because the idea is to have many small barks moving automatically around the water channels in a city. And when they meet in a bigger on a bigger water channel, then they combine with each other to save energy and to combine their motor power. Then the next use case is naturally robot co-working, and robot co-working cannot be realized without Edge AI because due to the latency of cloud systems, it would be too dangerous for humans to work together with robots when you would try to implement robot co-working with the cloud. Then other use cases are, for example, effective computing, which is about recognizing the emotions and the state of a human being. And probably you know, as most of you know, the cloud has issues with privacy. And I think no one from us wants to have their emotional state as the information in the cloud. Hence, using Edge AI here to process the most sensitive data on our smartphones before it is forwarded to any other part of the system, of the smart system application. And last but not least, smart cities, and a very important component of it's the smart streetlights. And here, to get the most efficient lighting control for the specific streetlights, Edge AI is very important, since not every streetlight is the same. As you can imagine, you have, for example, one streetlight lamp, and near this lamp is a tree, which has influence on the light the streetlight needs to provide. But some meters down the street, there you have a streetlight. There's no tree around, and here you have some other things that need to be considered for the light control. And when you would try to compute all these specific contexts in the cloud, it would be too much for it. As we have investigated in these in the expert group these use cases, we also looked at the state of the art at the same time. And as you can imagine, there's already hardware out there for Edge AI, for example, like the Jetson Nano from NVIDIA, but also specialized algorithms which are optimized in regards to memory and power consumption. And A very interesting topic in the context of edge AI is the topic of distributed learning, because learning in machine learning is the part which needs more resources than just the usage of a machine learning model. Hence, when you want to stay at the edge mostly, then you need to think about new approaches how to learn. And one approach is to split the data and the model itself into subparts, which are distributed, as you can see here in the image. And then every edge node trains a subpart, and then they are combined back again in the cloud on a central node. Other topics of the state of the art is naturally frameworks and platforms, a very general topic. Then a very interesting point that the borders between hardware and software getting very fuzzy in the area of edge computing and edge AI. And now we have here the cloud and the edge, and also we want them to work together. And one approach, for example, you can see here in the image is a little big approach. That means you split your problem in a little part and a big part. The little part is probably most of the time more time sensitive and is then computed by an edge device, and the bigger part is then, for example, processed in the cloud. But since the edge market or the edge computing is not established, and hence many trends and challenges need to still be solved. One of them, which is a general AI trend or challenge, is in trust and explainability. We want to know when something doesn't work out, why did the AI what it did. Then also the question, when you deploy it in a small device, edge AI algorithm, how you can adapt it. Can it still continuously learn and adapt to new data in an edge device, and how to do that? And a very important topic is of security and adversarial attacks. One adversarial attack you can see here in this image of the attack of patches, which is very concerning because it's very easy to realize for someone, because they just need to download the patch pattern and print it out and put it somewhere, for example, on a stop sign. And the idea behind the patch is that you put it in besides the object or on an object, and this leads classifiers to misclassify it. Like here, that the banana is classified as a toaster. Other trends is naturally we try to move more into smaller and smaller devices, and this always needs more optimized AI algorithms. And also, in general, trend is the deployment of new AI techniques. It's always a standard optimizing of learning, data handling, and so on. Then neomorphic technologies, very important because it's providing new hardware for the edge devices. And then also meta learning and hybrid modeling. Coming now from this to the collaboration landscape, I would ask you to look here, especially in the paper, because we have written in there much more about detail. But the most important current partnerships we thought that are important for edge AI are the key technologies, key digital technologies, connected, cooperative, and automated mobility, and artificial intelligence, data, and robotic partnership. And these are already nice also public-private partnerships, but we need much more than that when we want to compete with the rest of the world. And now, as we have looked on all these technical details and also some parts of the collaborative landscape in Europe, we also extracted some insights and some ideas for actions. One insight is on the right side here, you see the amount of money different countries invest in the topic of AI. And as you see, only 2 countries, as this is the top 10 in 2019, and only 2 countries are from the European Union, Germany and France. Hence, you need to be aware of that. This is a very hard race. And the European Union needs to be stay on track here so that it doesn't, other countries doesn't leave it in the dust. But money is not the only topic, also data, how to handle data, how to deal with privacy issues, how to exchange data, and so on and so on. And but there we need also looking at the European data strategy and extend it even further than it's in its current state. But there's not only bad points or points to work on in Europe, but there are also things which are relatively good, because this focus in Europe on security, privacy, and sustainability could be very important selling points for European edge AI products. And to only talk about some more points here is, I already mentioned that the borders between software and hardware getting more fuzzy. Hence, this also needs to be considered in the building of networks and in education. We cannot have a silo of where our new electrotechnical engineers are trained, and on our software engineers, they need to connect with each other so that new developments can happen in the area of edge AI and edge computing. And also, what is also very important, the tool landscape for edge compute and edge AI is still very fractured. Hence, there still needs to be more done in the area of developing standards so that the different companies, especially for us naturally in Europe, can work closer together, exchange data, and generate more network effects through that. And with this, I want to end this presentation with the roadmap we generated. This is more described in detail in the paper, but here is our idea of what could happen in the next 10 years, what could be the next developments, and yeah. And now I thank you for your attention, and I'm open for questions.
Yeah, many thanks to you for this enlightening presentation. Are there questions at the moment? Okay.
See, I didn't see any in the chat. Maybe I have a question. This is Herve speaking. So you mentioned that there is a need, a specific need for AGI to do like co-design between hardware and software. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? And also, I think the problem I see with that is that usually we try to have like a building block approach, that is generic blocks that you can reuse from application to application. And this seems to be conflicting if you need to do a specific design for hardware and software.
Yeah. Where to start? Also, there are many facets to this topic. I think a real example would perhaps be good, and this is this area of neomorphic technologies, because the idea between neomorphic technologies is that you put neural networks into hardware. However, the development of the algorithm itself, and most of the time the training of the algorithms, cannot happen on the chip itself in the current world. Hence, we need to develop to train our software, or to train the algorithm itself in software in the digital world, and then figure out a way to efficiently deploy the model, the trained model, from our software to the hardware chip, which is then later on, for example, integrated into a small microphone, which tracks for a specific word like Alexa, and when he recognizes words, then the rest of the system is triggered. And here, and for this, especially for this deployment part, the software side, the tool side, and the hardware side, the chip side, need to be aligned with each other.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side is naturally, since we want to have all these great applications like self-driving, even more efficient self-driving cars and so on, hardware needs to consider the requirements of software so that we can realize these applications. But on the other side, where you have limitations, and you can only do so much in regards to memory and power for example, in a car before it's getting too expensive. Hence, there needs to be this exchange that, okay, you have hardware requirements need considered by the software AI algorithms, but also software or application requirements which needs to be considered for the hardware development.
I see. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, many thanks. I think we should move on. So at the end, after the presentation of Francis Deprez, there will be again the possibility to ask questions. So we come now to a series of 4 presentations from illustrating what is going on in the various programs, European programs, and pointing out what is doing the national side. The latter is then given by Francis. We start with a presentation of Peter Connock. Peter has been working for decades in the semiconductor industry, and he's since a while the director of the Eureka cluster Penta, and he will talk about smart systems in the new Eureka ECSEL cluster. Please, Peter.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I'm just going to get the presentation up. Hopefully it is there.
Yes.
So as Wolfgang said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Eureka cluster program overall and the XECS cluster in particular. The XECS cluster is a successor cluster to Euripides, which hopefully all in the audience are very familiar with as an important tool in supporting smart systems, and Penta. Penta and Euripides have been working very closely together over the last 3 years, and indeed their last 3 calls have been carried out jointly with the idea of making sure we provide an integrated service to the broad ECS community while maintaining a specific focus in the areas of smart systems in the overall electronic components and systems context. As we look forward to the future, Euripides in particular had a very long history. Penta ran for 6 years, but we have to continue to change because our industry moves very, very rapidly. And we're now talking in whole-scale digital transformation in pretty much everything that we do. And so we believe that we need to focus this cluster on supporting the needs of our community on digital transformation, and particularly sustainable digital transformation. Eureka is nationally funded, and of course we are all concerned, and therefore our governments are concerned about sustainability, climate change, self-sustainability in food and so on and so forth. And so this is a major consideration that needs to also be taken on board by the technical community, as they will be the ones to make a lot of this happen. Of course, we exist in a funding instrument landscape, and you will hear later on, both from ECSEL in Bert, moving to KDT, and Francis in relation to a national funding perspective. And so you can see there's a range of funding support available for projects in the ECS community, ranging on the left-hand side of this screen from pure national funding, where national governments seek to develop their capabilities in their own country, through, of course, to the more strategic activities, large and small, stimulated by the European Commission, either individually or through public-private partnerships such as ECSEL. I'll say no more about that, as I say, because others will speak. Eureka lies towards the national end. It is stimulated by national governments independently, but the idea is that by working together in international collaborative projects, the return on investment that they will get will be much larger. And we believe that we've shown that over the years of Euripides and Penta project submission and completion. So XECS will fall into that same area, stimulating transnational or international programs, but on the basis of national priorities. Though, as with all Eureka programs, the intent is that projects submitted are so-called bottom-up. In other words, they come from industry, they come from you. The intent is that a challenge is understood, and then it is industry's responsibility to work out how to address that challenge and to excite the public authorities to invest in it because of the innovation of the ideas. Especially in the sustainability area, we'll be looking for some disruptive activity as well in this area. We also have IPCEI. All of these are designed to be complementary and not competitive, so that as you decide on the project that you would like to submit, you pick the right program to support you. Clusters overall, there are, at the moment, there are 5 of us, and we're all pretty much focused in one way or another on making digital transformation happen. There are 2 types of cluster, if you like, 3 which are based on what you might call core technology in terms of communication software and hardware. And there are 2 application-specific based communities or clusters, one based on low carbon energy and one on smart manufacturing. And of course, the 3 core technology so-called communities or clusters also stimulate applications, because one of the characteristics of a cluster project is not only does it move the state of the art, does it really create new innovation, but also it shows how it is implemented in applications, so that all the partners, as the project is completed, can benefit from the work that's being done in terms of exploitation, both economically and hopefully societally. So our purpose is to create technology, stimulate new applications, and create impact. The 5 clusters are Celtic Communication, Celtic Next for Communications, Eurogia, Low Carbon Energy, ITEA, Software Innovation, Smart in relation to advanced manufacturing, and now XECS as a successor to Euripides and Penta in our sustainable digital transformation. Moving into XECS now, we are driven by we're driven by the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, a document, again, I expect you to be familiar with, but just in case, it has been stimulated by the 3 industrial associations, AENEAS, Artemisia, and of course, EPoSS, and by coordinating the activities of a very large number of scientists and engineers across Europe, this reference document has been produced and developed over the last few years. It's updated every year to reflect the rapidly changing nature of our industry, and was given a major update that was launched earlier this year. You can see it's comprised of 3 core areas, so-called foundational technology, what is required to make things happen, the starting point, but also including process, equipment, materials, and manufacturing. Then the technologies that knit all of this together, communications, connectivity, things like artificial intelligence. You can see it on the screen. And of course, you can download the document off any of the industry association websites. And finally, most importantly, how that is brought together to create advancement in the key application areas that we as a electronic components and systems community think are important. Mobility, energy, digital industry, health and well-being, new for this edition, agri-food and natural resources, and digital society. So this, if you like, underpins the XECS program, and is an excellent reference document if you're thinking of pulling together a project to be submitted under the call to be launched later this year. So what is XECS? The idea is that it is an extremely important element of the funding landscape. It is targeted at projects that at the lower end are perhaps 2 to 5 million euros in total cost, and at the higher end are between 30 and 50 million. These are not rules, they are simply the size of projects that tend to be funded in this environment. For a project to be submitted, it has to involve at least 2 Eureka countries. That's a Eureka rule. And we would normally recommend for any sort of size of project that 3 would be a good number as a minimum. It is, as I've mentioned before, nationally funded, and therefore it's very important that you keep in contact with your local funding support body, national funding body, government, whatever it might be, to understand the eligibility requirements of this program. The XECS is both supported and guided, strategically guided by the ECS community, and we have the fortune to be able to work with the 3 big industrial associations which have a lot of experience across the ECS community. And hopefully by bringing those elements together, we provide you with a program that has the broadest possible reach and the broadest possible use to you as you submit projects. The projects are stimulated by public authorities in that they put money into it. That's the purpose of this activity, is to catalyze activity in the ECS community, but the projects are specified and executed by industry, with guidance in the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda and from the Eureka environment, where there is a multi-annual plan and an annual operating plan that will be produced under the new Eureka Cluster program each year. As a program, we believe that we are pretty much one of the most flexible. We believe that is essential because our world changes on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. Who'd have thought that we'd be going through what we've all gone through over the last year to 18 months, and other things will continue to happen. And so we need to be able to adapt to our circumstances as quickly as possible, and certainly call to call, we can completely change what we want to do, and we can, and we can run a call, an extra call where necessary. We try and be as fast as possible. We are a publicly funded instrument, and therefore there are cycle times that need to be gone through, but we try and be as quick as possible. And perhaps bizarrely for a funding program, we like to say we're friendly. And, you know, that's important because we like to form relationships with our public authority partners and with our project submitters, the leaders and partners, because this is a thing where we all need to work together to get the highest quality and highest impact of project. So we like to help, we like to support, we provide mentors, and we are on the end of the phone, email, video, to help make sure that the highest quality projects are submitted and developed and funded. Most importantly, we're open to everybody. There are no restrictions, be you large enterprise, SME, research and technology organization, or academic institution, university, for example. Everybody is welcome, because it is only by bringing the best of those elements together in the ecosystems that we seek to stimulate. And by doing that, we will create the new state of the art, push the technology forward, and that will bring the new applications, new capabilities, new competitiveness, and hopefully, where appropriate, support to our society, sustainability, health, safety, and so on and so forth. And so the money is put in for a reason. It's to catalyze high impact, high return projects. We're not doing this for fun. We're not doing this just for research. We're doing this to make things happen, to bring economic development, and as I've said, address societal issues. And finally, importantly, any project will be asked to address sustainability and related climate change in some way or other. We're not asking for every project to be the fantastic solver of all issues. That would be nice, but it's not going to happen. But we need that in the back of your mind as you submit projects and as you carry out projects. What are we doing to reduce energy? What are we doing to better utilize our resources? What are we doing to improve our effectiveness in terms of not contaminating our environment? And are we being more and more efficient so that we can survive globally in the long term? So very quick, very short, happy to answer questions, and please do not hesitate to contact us. You see my email address or through the website in any way that you might wish in the future. Thank you very much indeed for this opportunity, and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, many thanks, Peter, for this interesting insight view on what's going on towards the XES cluster. Yeah, questions to Peter.
Peter, this is Herve speaking. I have a question. As you know, France was not allocating any budget for Penta. Is it going to change with this new edition?
Not immediately. We're working on it. We still have French partners in our projects. In the last call, we have French partners. It's just hard to get the funding. You often have to go to regional organizations and so on and so forth. So it is difficult, and we appreciate how hard that is. However, we continue to work very strongly within the Eureka environment, because obviously there's Penta, Euripides, and XECS, and then the overall Eureka environment, where there are new bodies at the highest level of public authorities. And of course, we want Germany, we want the Netherlands, we want France, we want the UK to be in as big funding countries, because only then can you appreciate and bring in all the talent that's available. So we're looking at ways of we have a dip in France at the moment. They were a very high supporter, then they've dropped, and we would seek to bring them back. And we believe that there will be opportunities, not immediately, but in the not too distant future, we hope there will be opportunities to slowly reintegrate all countries into this program. And this whole ECP, a Eureka Clusters program, is designed to appeal to the public authorities that this is a tool that's molded to what they want to do. So hopefully we can get other countries in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking into the chat. There are no questions there. Yeah, so from my side, a question. So as I perceived, so the XES cluster is still on the way to be fully established. When will be there the first formal call for proposals?
Okay, so the cycle is we've submitted our application to be a cluster actually a week ago, last week, our formal application. This we expect, touch wood, to be approved, formally approved in June of this year. And that will then release us to begin all the activities related to launching our first call in the XECS environment, which will be launched at EFEX in November. So the intent is to keep the same cycle as we've kept with the joint Euripides Penta calls, with a call in November, project submissions in February, project outline submissions in February, and so on through the cycle, and projects being funded later on in the year. So it should be a seamless transition between the two programs if all goes to plan. And so far, touch wood, so good.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. We're a little bit behind schedule, and I would like to continue if there are no further questions at the moment, and I can't see raised hands, and I can't see further questions in the chat. So let's continue with a presentation on the KDT partnership and the status of this partnership, given by Bert de Colvenaer, who is since 2016 the executive director of the ECSEL joint undertaking, and also Bert has a long-lasting industrial background in the automotive industry. So please, Bert, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Pleasure to be here. I'm not sure if you can either hear.
We can hear.
Can you see the presentation?
Yeah, no problem.
Do you see the full screen? I'm trying trying to get there. You should have the full screen now.
We see the screen, and on the left, the 5 slides you will present to us.
Yeah, you don't see the full screen yet?
No, not yet.
No.
Just a moment, just a little more. Try again. Sorry, my computer is not in a good mood today. Does it work now? No?
Not yet.
Not yet. Is it loading or doesn't say anything? Anyway, sorry for this.
It's static, and we see slide 1. And on
it's
the
enough.
left,
I mean, at least you can follow when present.
yeah, we can follow.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
okay. I've clicked on the other button. I'm not sure if I do something wrong. Let's give me a last try. Not this one. Maybe I have to share my desktop. Anyway, let's go with this one.
Should I share your presentation?
No, it's fine. I mean,
No?
at least you can see, and you can see the whole overview. So that's all fine with me. So good morning, everybody. Thank you, Wolfgang, and a pleasure to be here. I'm going to have a short presentation on the ECSEL to KDT. I have purposely put some Latin words many people may recognize, those who have studied Latin in the past when they were younger. Quis, quitandem, abutere. And I think some of you can continue. How much more longer is basically the translations without any connotation, obviously. Maybe a short word on our office activity from the ECSEL joint undertaking. As on the bottom indicated, we are all working from home, and the whole systems halt. We are able to carry on with our support to the operational and administrative activities from the ECSEL joint undertaking. That all works well, but we are more than happy that maybe one day we all get out of these confinements, get back to in-person contacts with colleagues, with friends, and with family. Short presentation, only 5 slides. I think many of you already have seen more than enough slides. First, I go to say a couple of words about the ECSEL joint undertaking. As I said, everything is running pretty smooth, and I think many of you are looking forward to see the results of our call 2020. On this slide, I hope you can see ECSEL GU call 2020. This is the outcome of the call one, the projects, and just to give you a flavor of what is coming up with the new set of project activities, still with the caveat, as indicated on the bottom in gray, all projects still subject to concluding and signing the grant agreements. So far, I haven't signed any contract yet. They're all in the pipeline. They should all be concluded towards the mid of May next month. I have no indication that something is going wrong. But anyway, as many of you know, it's only at the end when the signature is there that we are sure everything worked out. We have selected last year 6 projects. I'm quickly going to run over, but I think you can easily indicate the trend of most of these projects. Transform, trusted European silicon carbide value chain for a greener economy related to power, led by Bosch. Store AI, embedded storage element for the next micro control unit for AI on the edge by ST. Energy ECS, smart and secured energy solutions for future mobility oriented energy concepts by Tieto, led by Tieto. CNECT, transform safety critical cyber physical systems into distributed solutions for the medical direction. So not only have perfectly safety critical in maybe banking and automotive, but also for health applications, because there also it becomes more and more important, led by Philips. GaN for AP, gallium nitride for advanced power applications, again, power projects. And then the ID2 PPAC integration of processes and modules for the 2 nanometer, the traditional ASML smaller nodes project. So this is related to the EA calls related to the RIA calls high efficiency and reliable electric drive trains by AVL, so mobility related, distributed AI systems by RISE, yes, GaN, gallium nitride on silicon, so again here related to power oriented electronics, AI for CSM, automotive intelligence, so again an AI related projects, AI Twilight, AI powered digital twins for lightning infrastructure by Signify, and in view of the Industry 4.0, another AI, and then next is also another AI do art, AI augmented automation for efficient develops of model-based framework for continuous development at runtime. So quite a few projects which are related to AI. MATQU, materials for quantum computing, Fraunhofer, and then EMOCO 4.E, intelligent motion control industry 4.E. So this is a flavor of what came out of the call 2020, and as said, these projects are still subject to concluding and signing, but normally that should all work out. Gives you a flavor of what's in the pipeline, what type of projects are coming. As you see, a lot of AI, a lot of power-related activities points we are traditionally pretty strong on. I will say obviously something about the KDT proposal from the Commission, KDT joint undertaking, at least what is in the pipeline. As this may be obviously of interest of many of the people who are listening, because that will be the successor of the ECSEL joint undertaking. Different from what we had in the past under ECSEL, where we had a specific council regulation, so the legislative act establishing the ECSEL. We now have what they call a single basic act, is where all the joint undertakings are taken together. So not only one by one, but now all the 9 together. These are the existing 7 plus metrology plus smart networks will come in there. So all into a single basic act. For your information, I've put the link on the public available document below. That's the proposal from the Commission, and that is not yet which is going to be adopted. I think it's useful to cover some of these points because, as you may know, we are in between 2 different programs. The ECSEL as such has kind of finished, finalized. We have had our 7 years of calls. The KDT is not yet there. And we hope that we will be able to conclude on this during the course of this year. The Single Basic Act is establishing the 9 joint undertakings, and for us specifically, KDT, we have a couple of nuts to crack. First one related to the central management of financial contributions. As some of you participating in the ECSEL, you're aware that now currently you have to have 2 different contracts. One contract is a grant agreement with us, with the ECSEL, and one national contract, which is covering the contribution of the member states. The ambition of the Commission is to simplify this and put everything into one management, central management of the financial contribution, bringing together both the European side and the national side. Now, for simplification, I think everybody can only applaud to get this kind of activity together. However, there is still a lot of legislation to comply with, especially from the national side, and that's where actually the difficulty lays in this current proposal, is that the member states cannot simply all the money to the ECSEL office to us for further distributions because they have to comply with national legislation. So that makes it difficult for them just simply to give us the money. And for us, it will be kind of difficult, if not impossible, to honor, if they would wish to do so, the 28 different sets of national rules in order to comply with each of the national regulations for the member states. So either they give it to us in a very generic approach, which is difficult for the member states to do. For us, it will be difficult to follow each of the conditions of the individual member states. So we are a little in a pretty complicated situation there in order to satisfy the proposal currently on the table. Latest discussions, and these are really informations which we only have been picked up during the course of, let's say, the last week, indicate that the conclusion or the discussion towards a conclusion are moving forward in a positive way. So apparently there is a possible conclusion with some additional flexibility built in order to allow everybody to be happy with this new proposal. I can't be too specific yet on that because it's obviously not agreed. The second point, which is still a little nut to crack, is the common back office, where, as you know, 9 different joint undertakings, if we all have to have our own individual legal service, HR service, IT service, audit service, and so on. This is understood as being duplicating many of the activities, which to a certain extent is true. On the other hand, if we have to put a common back office or like an institution or an instrument in the middle of the 9 joint undertakings serving each of us, we're creating another body, responsible for serving the joint undertakings, and then there will be a lot of either specificities or dedicated activities related to each of the joint undertaking individually, or an endless discussion about who has the priority because resources will be limited and who comes first. So that's why the common back office, maybe to simplify and to find more synergies, is a good idea, but practically very difficult to implement this. And we have had numerous discussions amongst the executive directors of the different joint undertakings, amongst us and together with the Commission, that that will be difficult to implement. Just to clarify, the directors of the joint undertakings are fully committed to try to be cost efficient and having as many as possible synergies, both on the administrative side and also on the operational side. But I think everybody understands that the benefit of introducing such an instrument should be more positive than the investment you need to make. And if this becomes, such a burden, it becomes very complicated. The next point is basically related to the ambition we have under KDT. And as you may know, maybe through the presentation Lucila gave yesterday morning, the ambition of the KDT joint undertaking is importantly increased. The budget is or will move, hopefully, when the proposal is accepted, from 1.17 to 1.8 billion euro, which is an important increase. It's close to 70, a little less than 70% increase. If this 1.8 billion euro from the European Commission gets complemented by the national contributions, another 1.8 billion on top of that, plus the in-kind contribution of the private members, we are getting very close to 7 billion euros, which is obviously an important, a big amount of money related to the implementation of the ECS activities, mainly what we are doing, plus some silicon photonics, plus some more software. At least that's the ambition. Now, in order to manage that, we need to look at also the resources in order to satisfy all the administrative requirements and being able to help each of you when participating. Now, at the moment, that is not yet reflected. So the increase in budget is not yet reflected into an increase in administrative resources. We will be able to to be a little more efficient and try to improve somewhere, but it has to stay a little aligned, and that's a concern we have both on the resources itself as on the financial contributions. So the administrative budget we will need to have. Related to the overall timing and the expectations on the call 2021, as you see, and the discussions are not yet finalized yet. We I feel are a little going towards a convergence mode, so trying to get towards a conclusion, but we are not yet there. So first, we don't have the traditional sequence of opening our calls in February, having the PO phase in May, and then having the FPP in September. That is not going to happen this year. We, together with all the stakeholders, including the Commission, still have the ambition to launch a call in 2021, but that will only be at the rather very end of the year. The situation is that the Council, who is the main decision taker, is moving pretty much forward. The Parliament, who has to give an opinion on the Single Basic Act only will give this in September. So logically, before that opinion is known, it will be difficult to conclude. Now, assuming that this would still happen in September without any further delay, still this Single Basic Act, and the document, if you look at it, is 350 something pages, needs to be translated, needs to be published, needs to be translated in all the languages of the European Commission. So I think it's 26 languages. Needs to be published, and then still 2 weeks after it can only start to take action. And then we will have to have our first board meetings, Public Authorities Board, Governing Board, deciding on all the founding documents, so all the rules of procedures and who is in charge of what, and so on, before we can decide on the work plan, before we can launch our first call. So just to indicate that it will getting very close to the end of the year. We will do every effort to get one this year, but that is not yet perfectly sure. Obviously, if we have a call in December, it does not make a lot of sense to have another call in February. So we will need to see how this will further cascade down. Related to the work plan as part of the KDT, still there is a discussion and activities which needs to take place on that, and that's basically to to realize the ambition of the Commission to prioritize in all the topics which are currently, as you may know, written down in the SRIA, the Strategic Research Innovation Agenda. That impressive, valuable book includes all the ambitions, aspirations of the whole sector towards going to the future. It's quite a lot, and it's basically covering everything closer or further related to the electronic components and systems. Maybe a little too much, seeing the resources, even the enlarged resources. That's why Commission would like to prioritize a couple of aspects to get some, better relief into what needs to be done first, second, and third. That still needs to happen, and that will be based on a couple of workshops which will be organized in the frame of the ECSEL governance, ECSEL governing boards, and that will happen during the month of May. That prioritization gives a little guideline in which direction each of these discussions will go, what has been important, and will guide to a certain extent also the activities of the industry. So that is still an important part of work needs to be done, discussing on these prioritizations, and then that needs to be agreed upon in the ECSEL governing board. So that would mean that not only the industry would kind of find a priority in the SRIA, but also the member states and the Commission needs to agree with that. So that's still quite some discussion, and that I think will take its necessary time. So these are, let's say, the main, points of interest of concern to the KDT preparations. As a conclusion, I'm convinced that ECSEL is doing well, is still doing well, is always doing very well. And for your information, the picture on the right-hand side is the small booklet we have published, Powering Digital Transformation for Europe, which is available on the website, and which is basically a collection of all statements of industrial and public authorities responsible people, confirming, stating what the benefit is of participating in ECSEL and where we have brought them individually. So I only invite each of you to go have a look and use it, whenever you have to make a sales page for ECSEL KDT. For KDT, as I tried to have explained, we are running late. We are still running late. We were running late last year, and we still are. And there are still a lot of things to be discussed and agreed related to KDT. Last point, we still have the plan for an ECSEL symposium. It's still an ECSEL symposium, and it doesn't help us to be a little between two programs. The ECSEL program sort of finished and the KDT is not yet launched. So we will have an event in June. We will come back to you to the exact timing and date. It's not going to be in person. It's going to be virtual, but probably a little different than what you have been used to. That's what I have to say. I appreciate being present here today, and I'm more than happy to answer any of the questions you would have. Thank you.
Yeah, many thanks, Bert. And also many thanks for this nice irony in the beginning. of your presentation. And for those of you who are not familiar with Latin and who did not Google in the meantime, the literal translation is, how long will you stress again our patience? So I hope that that will not apply to the KDT partnership, neither to ECSEL. But okay, and I'm also very satisfied that also Kai Bierzynski could be very satisfied with what you said in the beginning, that already a series of AI priorities are addressed in the current program. For the moment, I would allow one question only. And yeah, I open the floor for questions now. Okay, good. There is still time to ask questions at the end of the session. So no question in the chat, no hand raised. So then we will continue. Thanks again, Bert.
Pleasure.
And we come to expectations related to Horizon Europe. And Henri Rajbenbach from DG CNECT will talk about that. Henri is a senior expert and a program officer at the European Commission in DG CNECT, and also Henri has a long-lasting experience in industry. He was with Thomson CSF, which is now Thales, for many years. And I kindly ask you, Henri, to start your presentation.
Yes, good morning. Can you see my slide?
Yes.
Okay. Then good morning, and thank you, Wolfgang, for this nice introduction. It's always a pleasure to attend the SSI conference, and thank you for the invitation. Let me complete the introduction by saying that microelectronics and photonics topics are merged in a single unit, naturally called microelectronics and photonic industry. And this is industry, not industries, an opportunity to insist on the convergence of these two disciplines. And in digital devices, photons and electrons work in tandem. The outline of my presentation is as follows. First, I will introduce the SSI motto, integrated in diversity. Then I will go on and give an overview of the Horizon Europe program with some budget figures. After that, I will focus on two of the most relevant topics for the SSI communities, functional electronics and multi-sensing systems. And finally, latest news on the submission of proposals, agenda, and conclusion. Well, if you were there yesterday or earlier today, at least you're familiar with some of the acronyms that we are using. And from Bert today, also the KDT-JU. And in this maze, my focus will be on Horizon Europe, HEU, the Horizon Europe program. But first, as you know, we Europeans are united in diversity. At least this is what we're trying to do, and this is our motto. SSI is about the same story. It's about technologies integrated in their diversity. It's about integrating technologies and disciplines. Some, of course, are more advanced than others. It's mostly about hardware that makes it fun and challenging. Microelectronics and photonics are, of course, certainly the more important one at the forefront. But there are much more to it. Micromechanics, macrofluidics, energy management, energy generation, and all those, as we've heard earlier by Kay, have to be properly designed and very critically co-designed and then miniaturized and packaged to realize those integrated components. Well, the specification space is very dense. Each of these technologies has its own metrics and unique selling points. And here's just a limited set of examples. For photonics, sources and detectors, it's of course the spectrum, the bandwidths, and the power of emitters and the sensitivity of photodiodes, and the multispectral aspect, as we've heard earlier this week, of optical sensors, including also image sensors. For macrofluidics, it is the gas or the liquid flow rate, but also the minimum volume that one can operate with. For biosensors, the sensitivity or the specificity was called the true positive or true negative rates. For storage, the terabyte capacity or the gigabit per second access time. For communication, we've heard earlier today, communication to the outside, kilobits per second or millisecond latency, depending on where we communicate to, whether smartphone, PC, edge, as we've heard, or cloud. At the end, the software for operating the system is key, both for operating the system itself, but also for data crunching and processing towards something which is a useful information. It can be very simple, useful information like consult your doctor, or turn left, or brake immediately. And this is the most difficult to put metrics on. But all converges to the number of functions per cubic centimeters. And of course, the size and cost. And this is quite easy, in particular for consumer product. It's basically around €1 in a cubic centimeter, or $1 bill in size and cost for flexible or wearable devices or patches. But let's go back to our concern. How is this diversity supported by the European Commission? Well, let me jump to this slide. You've already seen this slide yesterday, presented by Lucila. And between two pillars, Pillar 1 on excellence and Pillar 3 on innovation, we stand here on the biggest one, Pillar 2, 47.4 billion euros. And on this pillar, we are in Cluster 4. Cluster 4 called Digital, Industry and Space, with a funding of 13.5 billion. So Pillar 2, Cluster 4. Well, Cluster 4 is like an airport. Well, I should say today a train station. We have destinations. So don't get lost. Each destination addresses specific topics. Let me address or concentrate on 3 of them. The first one is called Twin Transition, where the topic is basically around production. So the use of renewable sources, waste management, and the second one is called resilience. And resilience might be of interest to you because it's a lot about materials, including multifunctional materials and green electronic materials. But the most relevant one today is called digital emerging. So basically, it's digital and emerging. Those technologies fit for competitiveness and fit for the Green Deal. And this is where you'll find our topics in electronics, photonics, artificial intelligence, or quantum technologies. So let's take destination 4, digital emerging. We are now in a train made of a number of sections, coaches, if you wish, des wagons. So I hope you still follow me there. The 2 relevant coaches are called leadership in electronics and leadership in photonics. Let me also mention en passant the emerging enabling technologies, which are long-term type research, where you'll find topics like spintronics, 2D materials, or quantum sensing. One train per year is not much, 2021 and 2022. And here in 2021, in electronics and photonics, we'll have 5 topics, 2 of which In 22, we'll have one topic, and out of these 6 topics in electronics and photonic, 2 are of relevance for the SSI community. The first one is called Functional Electronics for Green and Circular Economy, and the second one is called Advanced Multisensing Systems, to be called in 2022. At this stage, let me give credit to the 5E project and their proposal, what should I say, lobbying, a proposal for functional electronics. Functional electronics being at the convergence of advanced nanoelectronics, flexible and wearable systems, and electronic smart systems. And this is an approach that shifts from purely physical integration to functional integration. As for the coming 2 years, what appears is that this is how we would support this. Under the 2 program, as Bert was describing, the KDT-JU, hopefully covering a significant part of the electronic smart systems, and Horizon Europe covering largely flexible and wearable electronics, and some parts of the electronic smart systems. We'll see which one. But first, functional electronics for green and circular economy, topics 0131. By the way, it's interesting to see yesterday the winners of the 5E contest. They were all about sensors, of course, but also all about flexible and new substrates. This is the topic of this specific call, 35 million euros in budget. We're calling for a project in the range of 3 to 5 million, research and innovation actions, starting quite low in TRL, starting from 2 or 3, and the call in 2021. The keyword, well, 2 keywords here. The first one is on the flexible and printed organic electronics, but very importantly, the green aspect. So we will be looking at a project where the outcomes will be new concept designs and technologies for circular economy and sustainability, and the next generation components for climate neutral digital solutions. In scope, again, low TRL, so we're looking for technological breakthroughs in functional electronics, technologies, green and digital transformation. And in terms of the design, eco-design principles to be adopted for such topics: reduction of energy and resource consumption, and of course, low cost, lightweight, and less energy intensive approaches. The focus on this topic will be the use of different types of substrate, flexible, stretchable, and conformable, and those integrated in textile, plastic, glass, paper, and metal, or more, but a broad set of support. Looking for the improvement of system characteristics in performance, robustness, reliability, but also because this is a key selling point for the flexible and larger electronics manufacturing processes, high throughput, low cost devices. A broad range of application domains, from wearable, mobility, health and well-being, to energy and smart logistics. And again, eco-design principles to be implemented there. The second topic is called Advanced Multisensing Systems. This is implementing part of the photonic partnerships. So in this topic, photonics is there in all projects. 48 million euros, again, the same size of project we're looking for, research and innovation actions, starting from TRL 2 ending at TRL 5, and the call is planned for 2022. Here, what are the expected outcomes? The next generations of multi-sensing photonic and electronic systems with increased level of integrations, decreased size, and again, also manufacturing, cost-effective manufacturing, supporting the European strategic autonomy. Contributing, of course, to the Green Deal objectives with the high levels of reuse, repair, or repurpose, recovery and recycling of waste and materials, and a reduction of power consumption by, we need to put some figures, at least a factor of 2. Again here, broad application sectors, healthcare, environment monitoring, transport, manufacturing, aerospace, and security. The scope, again, at low TRL, so we're looking into breakthroughs in sensor systems, combining component development, system integration, packaging, and cost-effective manufacturing, and more. Reduction of overall energy consumption, and here important to know the sensing functionality built on technologies related to light, although we're looking for, of course, integration with a number of other disciplines and technologies, macro nanoelectronics, macro nanomechanical systems, macrofluidics, magnetic, RF, and biochemical technologies. Well, some latest news en vrac for the submission of Horizon Europe proposals. We will be limiting the maximum number of pages. We will be limiting the number of pages to a maximum of 45 compared to the 70 of today, at least in the narrative part of the proposals. Important also the gender equality plans, which at least from 2022 would need to be in place for public bodies. The program will focus exclusively on civilian applications. In terms of evaluation, we will not evaluate anymore the management structure. This is endless discussions from copy-paste from proposal to proposal, but still we will look for having a management structure. On the key selection criteria, which is impact, we'll introduce the concept of KIP. So it's not about having a business plan or a business view, but having key impact pathways that of course increases the chances for low TRL and having other than directly industrial exploitation. And also researchers will have to be identified and named in the proposals for statistics, for looking at the gender equality plans, and more. This is my almost last slide, just for your agendas. We are organizing info days for Horizon Europe. It will be 18 and 19 of March, covering the full set of the topics in cluster 4. And in particular, let me draw your attention on the 19th of May, and of the morning, we will be giving some the presentation on the 5 topics for 2021 on destination 4. And maybe now Bert has not mentioned, but KDT-JU workshop will also being organized, and that would be the next day. And I invite you as the SSI community to impact on the topic of multifunctional integration that will include integrated photonics and flexible electronics. With that, I'm ending up my presentation. Thank you. This is the go home message, but anyway, you might already be home. Thank you for your attention. I am ready to answer questions now at the end of the session.
Yeah, many thanks, Henri. Yeah, I see the hand of Elisabeth Steinmetz is up, and yeah, I'm kindly asking you to ask your question to Henri.
Henri, thank you very much for this really nice overview on what is going on in Horizon Europe and on the multifunctional electronics. So this is only covering the low TRL. Don't you think that also in these higher TRL levels, they are already having a look at the presentations yesterday and the prices of the 5E contest, that there are already multifunctional proposals there? And if you would give us an advice for the workshop on KDT on the 5th on the 20s that you mentioned, what would be your suggestions on priorities given from the Commission side?
Well, I guess this is maybe a question to Bert. What we've been fighting for is to keep projects starting at rather low TRL, 2 or 3. So this is the starting point. This is where we believe project size of 2 to 4 million are relevant, and of course we look for having exploitation perspectives in the project, but really, and this is a choice for the topics, looking for breakthroughs in this domain. What I must add also is that for the multifunctional or multi-sensor systems, as being part of the photonic partnership implementation, there the ending up at TRL5 is quite relevant. What we've experienced, in particular in the domain of health, is that going higher is very expensive. Because going higher and having a demonstration in a real environment, that means, for example, hospitals or general practitioner, requires testing, and that's very costly, that's lengthy, and that does not fit in the budget of a normal project. So this is why we call for starting at TRL 2 or 3, which is not so low, because it's already assuming that the basic principles have been demonstrated.
Okay. Thanks, Henri.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elisabeth, for the question. So tempus fugit. We come now to the last presentation of this session, and this is given by Francis Deprez from VLAIO, and he's talking about, so he's looking on the European landscape of funding from a national perspective. Francis has a master degree in electronics and photonics, and he also has more than 2 decades experience in industry, and he is currently the scientific R&D scientific officer for R&D funding in Flanders, and he is member of the public authorities and the governing board of ECSEL, and he was very much involved in other initiatives also as ENIAC and Katrine and ITEA and Penta, etc. So, Francis, the floor is yours, please.
Well, thank you. And normally my presentation should come on. So, one more click, I guess. Is it going through?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, Wolfgang, for inviting me. And I'm the last hurdle between all of us and lunch. So it's also an important thing to know. And then I did hear quite a lot of technical things and really focused things. So deliberately, I try to just take a complete other angle. There we go. Why are we spending taxpayers' money on high TRL innovation such as, well, that's a hard thing to do. Why are we doing that? That's what should keep us as public officers awake. I'm a very poor sleeper, by the way. Why are we subsidizing And I mean, this is just the other angle, because all of the people that are asking for funding and whatever, they sometimes forget this kind of big pictures. You could take the approach of Mariana Mazzucato in her The Entrepreneurial State. If we want to have innovation in our society, it will come from public funding. And public funding is what is keeping innovation, driving innovation in our society. And all great innovations of the last century have come through somewhere public funding. We are probably funding it as public authorities because this is the only way to have moonshots. Companies are looking for their next quarter reports and policymakers are the ones that should be looking 30 years ahead. I mean, it's not always the case, but still, and funding is probably the instrument between the two. We are funding because of level playing field, and I mean, if you look in this world, the EU versus the US versus China, if you take Made in China 2025, we are subsidizing because somewhere we are in an unequal world and geopolitics have their role in it. I once, it was just some time ago, I read a very, very intelligent and well, triggering article by Roland Duchâtelet, who is the chairman of Melexis, part of XFAB. And he said, funding, subsidize is negative taxes. We tax things we don't want in our world. We tax also because we are using public services. And fundings are negative taxes, are, well, contributions for the future. What I did here, and it was very obvious during the presentation of the Commission, funding is a way of structuring. I mean, what I saw and heard from the Commission is a shopping list, really thematics, which are call outs towards contenders to contribute. So funding is also used for structuring. What I learned is if you want to forge European and world interactions, innovative interactions, you can't do without structuring and without subsidizing. I mean, it's the grease that is put into the machine to make people, to make organizations collaborate with each other. And well, sometimes if I look at my own job, why do we fund? Well, because the rest of the world is funding as well. I mean, no clear reasons. But still, each time you are in funding arena, you should always take back some of the reasons why. Why are we funding? Secondly, how are we funding? And I'll go back to my keynote speech on EFEX in 2017. It was in Brussels, where I said, funding needs to be a 50 shades of gray landscape. White funding is the thing you put into TRL 1 and TRL 2, which is the 100% funding for basic research, and that's one of the things you need to do as public authorities to get started and to keep the innovation wheels moving. And at the other side of the arena, you will find the Valley of Death of Gabriel Crane, which is, well, give us the final push for industrialization and making profit out of it, which is then the dark side of, well, it's the almost black, no more funding, limited funding just to make the last line. And what I do see in the last, I've been active now for 14 years, I see that in all public funding, we see gently that we are, well, we are funding 50 shades darker. So the tendency is there that the amounts that we are spending currently tend more into the end phase, to the Valley of Death than it has been before. So it's just an observation, and as mentioned just before, and well, it's consuming a lot of money if you are funding into the last part, regardless that it's rather dark and not 100% of funding. Still, it gets more and more expensive, and this is probably also why you see that in KDT the moving up to a total scheme of projects which will go beyond 7 billion euro. This is a very large kind of arena. If you are funding out of a public authority regional, which like we are, you'll want to be rather independent. I mean, we have our own political lords and masters, but we do that in a European dependency. So that's kind of there's always some kind of friction, some balance to be looked at. And in the end, how are we funding? We have to fund where there are some kind of criteria where the taxpayer's interest, the positive taxing versus the shareholders' interest, the negative taxing, there's balance. And what I see as an evolution is that more and more the political lords and masters are demanding for more evidence on that balance and better structures on that balance. So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to in the next couple of years, and will also have to be in the minds of the applicants that this is a very vital thing and will become somewhere a KPI in many of our discussions. Yet another observation, and this comes from the huge ECSEL projects we had. I mean, ECSEL projects, I think that the largest one had budgets in the vicinity of 180 million euro. And as well, in ECSEL, we are funding projects. We are funding the entire orchestra, playing one core, but in that orchestra, well, not all musicians are equal. We have people playing the violin and the piano, playing the solos, and you might say that the triangle is also a solo, but there's difference. So this is one of the things that we will have to learn and tune, and has been rather difficult, is that in those huge kind of projects, we have to fund according to contribution, which is not always money size, but also percentage size. So this is one of the other frictions. And then for Flanders especially, we had an open innovation landscape. So we, as a region, we tended to say, no, we will not make the selections. We will not make, as I heard the shopping list of Europe, no, we will not do that. It's an open innovation. You can come with whatever is innovative, and we will start funding it according to overall general criteria. This is one of the changes that I see, is that more and more by these global movements in the world, we are being sucked into the more focused, structured world more and more, because nowadays we do already have special programs for AI and this kind of things. So the way of subsidizing is changing over the years, which makes it more interesting. Very fast, because it has been announced already. If in industrial European funding, we see the small things, and Eurostars, Eranet, Interreg, EFRO, Eureka, which are well, more or less compatible to what the Commission is doing in the low TRLs. So with the very small budgets of, well, things like less than 5 million euro, but then tending to the higher TRL levels, seals of excellence that are being ported to local funding. We have the mid-size Eureka cluster, things between 5 and 30 million euro, and quite honestly, this is the battlefield. They are in between small and large, and sometimes being squeezed, and it's a bit of a concern to us that this arena, as I said, has been squeezed over the last 10 to 15 years, and we really need to have this arena broadening once again, pushing both sides slightly away to become as it is larger. So we would be very positive if this would happen. And then yes, the large size, the joint undertakings. I mean that has been an evolution since ENIAC and Artemis, and this has become an instrument of size, an instrument we didn't have before. And then if you really talk about the big sizes, we are currently focusing and having more and more important projects of common European interests, which are of very huge size. I mean, you're talking billions of euros over Europe, and also at the very end of the TRL levels, this is TRL 7, 8 kind of things. This is the landscape as we experience it as a member state. Companies, well, they have the competition. They have their own competition with their peers. I have the feeling that within Europe, we have the competition between the systems of funding as well. There is some EU dominance, and we were already discussing and heard from Bert the CMFC question. And Bert, my latest thing is that it appears that CCFC, one of my ideas, is coming true, so that there's hope down there. But we see that the Commission is really trying to structure Europe and putting in dominance as being a very large player. And well, this is and standardization via restrictions of regulations, GIBER, the SBA, so the Single Basic Act. So somewhere European funding authorities are in some kind of competition with each other, and this is one of the challenges ahead. Not to have a one European dominance overall, because we will never bring that far. I mean, member states will not allow that, but to harmonize, to simplify and to smoothen out some of these frictions is one of the challenges ahead. Lunch is coming up. One very last idea, and then one that's very dear to me, and the ones who are seeking funding should think about this. Is this funding? Is it the drug? Because we have to cure our industry that is not vital enough anymore and has to revitalize for a future? Or is it a vaccine already giving something to industry to, well, prevent them becoming weak in a world industry? This is a thought that also appeared when I was making this kind of presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, many thanks, Francis, for this nice conclusion of this session, which shall stimulate reflection on what we are doing in our daily business and on what is useful and sometimes on what might be not useful to do. Yeah, many thanks. At the moment, I don't see further questions in the chat. This is, I would say, reason enough to close the session without stealing further time from the topic tables, which should have started already at 12:30. Yeah, many thanks again, Francis, and many thanks also to all the other speakers and who really gave us a nice overview and already, I would say, exhaustive answers to potential questions. Yeah, many thanks to the speakers, many thanks to you, the audience of this session, for your interest and your participation, and also explicit thanks to the organizers of the event, and in particular Carola Schulze for her magnific support. Thanks to you and have a good time. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Goodbye, thank you all, bye.
Bye-bye, thank you, and thank you, Wolfgang.
Bye, Henri.